The Zorathians, a race of tall, scaly aliens with glowing red eyes, thought they could do whatever they wanted. They believed no one in the galaxy would care about a tiny group of humans. So one starry night, they attacked a small human colony ship called Hope's Journey. This ship was just floating quietly through space, carrying families looking for a new home on a faraway planet. The Zorathians didn't care about that. They swooped in with their sleek black warships, silent as shadows, and took 10 people away. They didn't ask questions, they didn't explain, they just grabbed them and left. The humans they took weren't soldiers or fighters. They were regular people, parents, teachers, even a kid who loved drawing pictures of stars. The Zorathians locked them up in a secret prison on their dark moon, a cold, rocky place called Varnex. This moon was hidden deep in their territory, far from any trade routes or busy space lanes. It was a place where no one would look, a place where the Zorathians thought they could keep their secrets safe. The prison was carved into the side of a mountain, with walls of black stone and no windows. The cells were small, damp, and freezing. The humans were given no food, no blankets, and no answers. The Zorathians wanted them to disappear as if they had never existed. The aliens didn't bother with a trial. They didn't write down the names of the people they took. To them, these humans were nothing, just specks in the vast galaxy. The Zorathians were sure no one would notice. They thought Earth was too small, too weak, and too far away to do anything about it. They believed the rest of the galaxy would stay quiet, too busy with their own problems to care about 10 missing humans. But they were wrong, very wrong. Somewhere out there, in the endless stretch of stars, someone was paying attention. A trader ship passing nearby caught a faint signal from Hope's Journey right before it went silent. The signal was a distress call, a desperate plea for help. The traders didn't know much, but they knew something bad had happened. They sent the message out, bouncing it from one space station to another, until it reached a small outpost on the edge of human space. The people there listened, and they didn't like what they heard. Word began to spread, like a spark jumping from one dry leaf to another, starting a fire no one could ignore. On Earth, the news hit hard. Families who had loved ones on Hope's Journey gathered in meeting halls, their faces pale and their voices shaking. They wanted answers. Who took their people? Why, and where were they now? The leaders of Earth, sitting in a tall building filled with screens and maps, heard the cries. They didn't shout or make big speeches. They just listened. And they started to plan. The Zorathians didn't know it yet, but their quiet little plan was already falling apart. They thought they could hide what they did, but the galaxy is a big place with many eyes. A tiny drone, no bigger than a soccer ball, was floating near Varnex when the Zorathian ships brought the humans there. The drone belonged to a curious explorer from a neutral planet, someone who liked mapping forgotten corners of space. It recorded the ship's landing, the humans being dragged out, and the heavy prison doors slamming shut. The explorer didn't know what to do with the video at first, but she sent it to her friends, who sent it to others. Soon, the images were everywhere, flashing across screens on planets light years away. People started talking. On a busy trade world called Nexara, merchants whispered about the missing humans as they sold their goods. On a dusty mining planet, workers passed the story around during their breaks. Even children on a school station, learning about stars and comets, heard about the 10 humans who vanished. The galaxy wasn't as cold and uncaring as the Zorathians thought. People were curious, and some were angry. They didn't like the idea of anyone being taken and locked away for no reason. Back on Earth, the families of the missing humans refused to stay quiet. A woman named Maria, whose brother was one of the 10, stood in front of a crowd and spoke. Her voice was strong, even though her hands shook. She told everyone about her brother Miguel, who used to fix broken machines and make his little daughter laugh with silly songs. She showed a picture of him smiling, holding a tiny model of a spaceship he built. The crowd grew quiet, listening to her words. Maria wasn't a soldier or a leader, but her story made people feel something. It made them want to help. Other families shared their stories too. A man named Chen talked about his wife, Layla, who was taken. She was a teacher who loved showing kids how to grow plants in space. A young girl named Aisha, only 10 years old, spoke about her dad, Omar, who was one of the prisoners. He used to draw pictures of the stars with her, teaching her their names. Each story added weight to the growing anger on Earth. These weren't just 10 random people. They were loved. They were missed. And Earth wasn't going to let them go. The Zorathians, safe on their dark moon, had no idea how much trouble they were in. They sat in their tall towers, surrounded by screens showing their empire's strength. They counted their ships, their weapons, their money. They thought they were untouchable. Their leader, a cold-eyed commander named Zyker, laughed when he heard about the distress signal from Hope's journey. "Humans," he said, his voice like a hiss. "They're weak. They'll cry for a day and then forget. No one will come for them." Zyker was wrong, but he didn't know it yet. He didn't know about the trader ship that caught the signal. He didn't know about the explorer's drone filming his prison. He didn't know about Maria, Chen, and Aisha, or the thousands of others on Earth who were starting to stand together. He didn't know that the galaxy was watching, not with fear, but with curiosity and anger. The Zorathians thought they could act in secret, that their dark moon was far enough away to hide their crime. But secrets don't stay hidden forever. On a small space station near Earth, a group of engineers picked up the drone's video. They watched it over and over, their faces grim. The video wasn't clear, but it showed enough. Humans being pulled from a Zorathian ship, their hands tied, their faces scared but brave. The engineers sent the video to Earth's leaders along with a message. "We know where they are." That was all it took. The spark had become a flame, and the flame was growing. The Zorathians had made a big mistake. They thought taking 10 humans would be easy, that no one would care. They thought Earth was too small to matter, that the galaxy would stay silent. But they didn't understand humans. They didn't know how stubborn, how fierce, how loyal humans could be. The galaxy was watching, yes, but it was Earth that was listening, really listening. And Earth wasn't going to let this go. In the days after the attack, people on Earth started working together. Scientists studied the video, trying to learn more about Varnix and its prison. Pilots checked their ships, making sure they were ready to fly. Families like Maria's wrote messages to other planets asking for help, sharing their stories. Even kids got involved, making signs that said, "Bring them home." The Zorathians thought they had won by locking those 10 people away. They thought silence would cover their tracks. But the galaxy was too big, too connected, and Earth was too determined. The Zorathians didn't see it coming. They didn't know that their secret prison wasn't so secret anymore. They didn't know that a single distress call, a single video, could start something they couldn't stop. They thought they were the hunters, but they were about to become the hunted. The humans they took weren't just names on a list. They were people with families, with dreams, with stories. And those stories were spreading, lighting up the galaxy, calling for justice. As the days passed, the Zorathians went on with their plans. They sent more ships to patrol their borders, thinking they were safe. They checked their prison on Varnex, making sure the humans were still locked away. They laughed and told themselves that no one would dare challenge them. But out there in the stars, the galaxy was whispering. And on Earth, people were planning. The Zorathians thought they had won, but they had only started something much bigger than they could ever imagine. The 10 humans taken by the Zorathians weren't just random people. Each one had a life, a story, and someone who loved them deeply. These weren't strangers to the galaxy. They were people with families, friends, and dreams. The Zorathians thought no one would care, but they picked the wrong humans to mess with. Every single one of them was connected to someone important, someone who wouldn't let this go. These connections made the Zorathians' mistake bigger than they could ever imagine. One of the humans was named Leela Chen. She was a teacher who loved helping kids grow plants in space. Leela had a warm smile and a way of making everyone feel special. She taught on the Hope's Journey ship, showing children how to care for tiny sprouts in zero gravity. Her classes were full of laughter, with kids floating around, trying to catch seeds that drifted away. Leela's wife, Maria, was a brilliant scientist who built starships that could travel faster than anyone thought possible. Maria wasn't just smart, she was fierce. When she heard Leela was taken, her heart broke, but her mind started working. She wasn't going to let the Zorathians keep her wife locked away. Maria began sketching plans, her pencil moving fast across the page, designing ways to find Leela and bring her home. Another human was Omar Hassan, a dad who loved drawing pictures of the stars with his daughter Aisha. Omar was an engineer on the colony ship, fixing machines and making sure the air stayed clean for everyone to breathe. He wasn't loud or flashy, but he was steady, always there when someone needed help. Aisha, only 10 years old, looked up to her dad like he was a hero. Every night, they'd sit together, sketching constellations and making up stories about the planets they'd visit someday. Aisha's uncle, Captain Idris Hassan, was the commander of Earth's toughest fleet. He led ships that could outfly anything in the galaxy. When Idris learned his brother was gone, his calm face turned hard. He called his crew together and said, "We're getting Omar back." His voice was quiet, but it carried a strength that made everyone listen. Then there was Miguel Torres, a mechanic who could fix anything with a wrench and a smile. Miguel was the kind of person who made everyone laugh, even on bad days. He'd sing silly songs to his little daughter, Sophia, while tinkering with broken gadgets on the ship. His sister, Elena, was a hacker who could sneak into any computer system, no matter how secure. Elena worked in a quiet office on Earth, surrounded by screens glowing with code. When she got the news about Miguel, her fingers froze on the keyboard. Then they started moving faster than ever. Elena wasn't going to sit and cry. She was going to find her brother, even if it meant breaking into every Zorathian system to do it. Another prisoner was Priya Patel, a doctor who cared for everyone on Hope's journey. Priya had a gentle voice and hands that could heal almost anything. She'd stay up late, checking on sick kids or helping tired parents. Her best friend, Commander Tara Singh, led a team of explorers who mapped new planets. Tara was tough, with a sharp mind and a heart full of loyalty. When she heard Priya was taken, she stopped her latest mission and turned her ship toward Earth. Tara wasn't just angry, she was ready to fight. She started gathering her team, whispering plans about how to track down the Zorathians' secret prison. There was also Jamal Carter, a cook who made the best meals on the ship. Jamal could turn boring space food into something that tasted like home. He'd joke with the kids, sneaking them extra cookies when no one was looking. His older brother, Marcus, was a pilot who flew dangerous missions for Earth's Defense Force. Marcus had a scar across his cheek from a battle years ago, but his eyes were kind. When he learned Jamal was gone, he climbed into his fighter ship and checked every system twice. Marcus wasn't loud about it, but he made a promise to himself. He'd fly to the edge of the galaxy if it meant saving his brother. Another human was Sarah Kim, a young artist who painted murals on the walls of Hope's Journey. Her pictures of forests and oceans made people feel like they were back on Earth, even in the middle of space. Sarah's mom, Dr. Hannah Kim, was a scientist who studied alien technology. Hannah worked in a lab filled with strange gadgets, trying to understand how they worked. When she heard Sarah was taken, she pushed her glasses up and got to work. Hannah started digging through old Zorathian tech she'd studied, looking for clues about their ships and their prison. She wasn't going to stop until she found a way to get her daughter back. Then there was Leo Martinez, a quiet man who fixed the ship's lights and wires. Leo didn't talk much, but he listened to everyone's problems and always knew how to help. His cousin, Rosa, was a leader in Earth's government. Rosa spoke at big meetings, her voice strong and clear, convincing people to work together. When she learned Leo was one of the 10, she canceled her meetings and called her team to a secret room. Rosa wasn't just a talker, she was a planner. She started making lists, gathering names of people who could help find Leo and the others. Another prisoner was Amara Johnson, a gardener who grew flowers that made the ship smell sweet. Amara loved teaching kids how to water plants and watch them grow. Her older sister, Captain Zoe Johnson, was a starship captain who led rescue missions. Zoe had flown through asteroid storms and fought off pirates without blinking. When she got the news about Amara, she clenched her fists and told her crew to get ready. Zoe wasn't going to let the Zorathians keep her sister. She started plotting a course to Varnex, the dark moon where the prisoners were held. There was also Ethan Lee, a kid not much older than Aisha. Ethan was only 12, but he was brave, always exploring the ship and asking questions about how things worked. His dad, General David Lee, was a leader in Earth's army. David was a serious man who rarely smiled, but he loved Ethan more than anything. When he heard his son was taken, he stood in his office, staring at a picture of Ethan holding a model rocket. Then he called his best soldiers together. David wasn't going to let the Zorathians hurt his boy. He started planning, his mind sharp and focused. Finally, there was Nia Brooks, a librarian who kept the ship's books and stories safe. Nia would read to the kids at night, her voice soft and warm, telling tales of heroes and faraway worlds. Her best friend, engineer Sam Brooks, built robots that helped clean the ship. Sam was Nia's cousin, and they were as close as siblings. When Sam heard Nia was gone, he stopped working on his latest robot and started building something new, something that could help find her. Sam's workshop was filled with sparks and tools, and he wasn't going to rest until Nia was safe. Each of these 10 humans had someone who cared, someone who wouldn't give up. The Zorathians thought they could take them and no one would notice. They thought the galaxy was too big, too busy to care about a few missing people. But they didn't understand how humans work. They didn't know that love and loyalty can be stronger than any weapon. Maria, the scientist, was already designing a way to track Zorathian ships. Captain Idris was fueling his fleet, ready to fly. Elena, the hacker, was sneaking into Zorathian systems looking for secrets. Tara, Zoe, and Marcus were plotting their moves, each one ready to fight. Rosa was rallying people, Dr. Hannah was studying, General David was planning, and Sam was building. All of them, connected by love for the 10, were starting to move. The Zorathians didn't just hurt strangers. They hurt people who were loved by some of the smartest, strongest, and most stubborn humans in the galaxy. Leela had Maria, Omar had Idris and Aisha, Miguel had Elena, Priya had Tara, Jamal had Marcus, Sarah had Hannah, Leo had Rosa, Amara had Zoe, Ethan had David, and Nia had Sam. These weren't just names on a list. They were people who mattered, and their families weren't going to let them stay locked away. The galaxy was starting to buzz with the news. Traders on busy planets talked about the missing humans. Miners shared stories about Earth's strength. Even kids on school stations whispered about the 10 who were taken. The Zorathians thought they could act in secret, but secrets don't stay hidden when people care. The humans they took weren't alone. They had powerful people behind them, scientists, commanders, hackers, and leaders. And those people were ready to do whatever it took to bring them home. The Zorathians had no idea what they'd started. They thought they could grab 10 humans and walk away. They thought Earth was weak, that no one would care. But they were wrong. They hurt the wrong people, and now those people's families were coming for them. The galaxy was watching, and Earth was ready to show everyone what happens when you mess with humans who are loved. The humans didn't shout or make big speeches when they heard about the 10 people taken by the Zorathians. Instead, they got to work. They didn't send angry messages or wave flags. They started doing things, quiet, smart things that would make the Zorathians pay attention. The aliens thought they could steal humans and get away with it, but Earth was ready to show them they were wrong. The first signs of trouble were small, but they were just the beginning. One night, a Zorathian ship called Iron Claw vanished near an asteroid belt. This wasn't a tiny ship. It was a big, shiny cruiser that carried supplies to their outposts. The belt was a messy place, full of spinning rocks and dust clouds, so the Zorathians didn't think much of it at first. They figured the ship got lost or hit a boulder, but there was no wreckage, no signal, no trace. The Iron Claw was just gone. The crew of 50 Zorathians disappeared with it. No one heard a call for help. No one saw a flash of light. It was as if the ship had never existed. A few days later, a Zorathian supply station on a dusty planet called Krenvox went dark. This station was important. It sent food, water, and tools to their soldiers across 3-star systems. One morning, the workers woke up to find the power off. The lights wouldn't turn on. The machines wouldn't hum. The water pumps stopped. Everything was silent. The Zorathians tried to fix it, but the controls were locked. Someone had changed the codes and no one could get in. The station was useless, and the soldiers waiting for supplies were left with empty hands. These things happened without a sound. There were no explosions, no battles, no warnings. The Zorathians didn't see any human ships nearby. They didn't hear any threats. At first, they laughed. Their leader, Commander Zyker, sat in his tall tower on the Zorathian homeworld, shaking his scaly head. "Humans," he said with a sneer. "They're too weak to fight us. This is just bad luck." His officers nodded, their red eyes glowing in the dim room. They thought it was a coincidence, nothing to worry about. But deep down, a few of them felt uneasy. Something wasn't right. On Earth, people were moving fast. Maria, the scientist whose wife Leela was taken, was in her lab surrounded by screens and wires. She wasn't crying anymore. Her hands were steady as she typed on her computer, sending secret messages to a small team of pilots. These pilots weren't part of any big army. They were freelancers, people who flew fast ships and knew how to stay hidden. Maria gave them a plan: sneak into the asteroid belt, find a Zorathian ship, and make it disappear. She didn't tell them to fight or shoot. She told them to be clever. The pilots did exactly that. They used a tiny device Maria invented, a signal jammer that could trick a ship's computers. When the Iron Claw flew near the asteroid belt, the pilots turned on the jammer. The Zorathian ship's screens went blank. Its engines stopped. The pilots towed the ship deep into the belt, hiding it behind a giant rock where no one would look. They left the Zorathians on a small, safe asteroid with enough food and air to last a week. No one was hurt, but the message was clear: humans could strike back. Meanwhile, Elena, the hacker whose brother Miguel was taken, was working in her dark office on Earth. Her fingers danced across her keyboard, her eyes locked on a glowing screen. Elena had found a way into the Zorathian supply station system. She didn't break anything or steal data. Instead, she changed the passwords and locked the controls. It was like putting a new lock on a door and throwing away the key. The Zorathians couldn't get in and their station was stuck. Elena smiled as she hit the final key. She knew this was just a start, but it felt good. Other humans were joining in, too. Captain Idris, Omar's brother, sent a team of his best scouts to a Zorathian trade route. They didn't attack. They just parked their small ships near a busy space lane and turned on a strange device. It sent out a signal that messed with Zorathian navigation systems. 3 cargo ships got lost, drifting off course for days. The Zorathians didn't know what happened. They blamed their pilots, but the truth was, humans were behind it. Tara, the explorer who was Priya's best friend, took her team to a Zorathian fuel depot. They didn't blow it up or steal anything. Instead, they snuck in at night and added a special chemical to the fuel tanks. The chemical was harmless, but it made the fuel burn out faster. Zorathian ships started running out of power halfway through their trips. Their captains were confused, shouting at their crews, but they couldn't figure out why. Tara's team was already gone, laughing as they flew back to their ship. These actions were small, but they added up. A Zorathian outpost lost its water supply when a pipe mysteriously broke. A communication tower stopped sending signals after its wires were cut. A warehouse full of Zorathian weapons was locked tight when someone changed the door codes. Each time, the Zorathians found no clues, no footprints, no signs of who did it. They started to argue among themselves, blaming each other for the mistakes. On Earth, the families of the 10 prisoners were talking. Maria met with Elena in a quiet cafe, sharing ideas over cups of tea. They didn't look like heroes, just 2 women with tired eyes and strong hearts. But their plans were growing bigger. They reached out to Marcus, the pilot whose brother Jamal was taken. Marcus flew his fighter ship to a secret meeting on a moon near Earth. There, he met Rosa, the government leader whose cousin Leo was gone. Together, they made a promise: keep hitting the Zorathians, but do it quietly. Don't let them know it's us, not yet. The Zorathians were starting to feel the pressure. Their soldiers were hungry because supplies weren't arriving. Their ships were stuck because fuel was low. Their leaders were annoyed because nothing was working right. Commander Zyker called a meeting in his tower, slamming his fist on the table. "Find out what's happening," he shouted. His officers scrambled, sending ships to check the asteroid belt and the supply station. But they found nothing. No humans, no answers. Back on Earth, more people were getting involved. Dr. Hannah, Sarah's mom, used her knowledge of alien tech to build a device that could turn off Zorathian cameras. She gave it to a team of engineers who snuck onto a Zorathian repair station. They turned off the cameras, then rewired the station's robots to move slowly. The Zorathians thought their machines were broken, but it was human hands that caused the trouble. Even kids were helping. Aisha, Omar's daughter, drew pictures of the 10 prisoners and gave them to her school friends. The kids shared the pictures with their parents, who shared them with others. Soon, people across Earth were talking about the missing humans. They started sending supplies to the families, offering to help however they could. Aisha's small act made a big difference, reminding everyone why they were fighting. The Zorathians didn't know it, but these small acts were part of a bigger plan. The humans weren't ready to fight a big war, not yet. They were testing the Zorathians, seeing how they'd react. Each lost ship, each broken station was a message. You can't hurt us and walk away. The Zorathians thought they were safe, but they were wrong. The galaxy was starting to notice, too. Traders on other planets heard about the missing Zorathian ship. Miners whispered about the broken supply station. The story spread, making the Zorathians look weak. Commander Zyker tried to keep his soldiers calm. He sent more ships to patrol their borders, thinking it would scare off whoever was causing trouble. But the humans were too smart for that. They stayed hidden, striking only when no one was watching. A Zorathian satellite stopped working one night, its signal cut off. A transport ship carrying Zorathian officers got stuck in a nebula, its engines failing. Each time, the Zorathians found no proof of who did it. Their laughter was gone now. They were starting to worry. On Earth, the families kept working. Maria's pilots were ready for their next mission. Elena was digging deeper into Zorathian systems, finding more ways to cause trouble. Marcus and Tara were training their teams, teaching them how to move fast and stay unseen. Rosa was talking to other leaders, making sure Earth was ready for whatever came next. They didn't know when they'd see their loved ones again, but they weren't giving up. Every small act of revenge brought them closer to their goal. The Zorathians thought they could laugh off the trouble, but it was growing. They didn't see the humans coming, didn't hear their plans, didn't feel the anger building on Earth. The missing ship, the broken station, the lost cargo, they weren't accidents. They were the first steps in a fight the Zorathians didn't expect. Humans weren't fighting with guns or bombs. They were fighting with brains and heart, hitting the Zorathians where it hurt. And this was only the start. Something had begun, and it was going to get bigger, stronger, and smarter every day. On the Zorathian homeworld, deep in a shiny tower made of black metal, A leader named General Varkey sat at a long table covered with glowing screens. Varkey's wasn't like Commander Zyker, who laughed at the idea of humans fighting back. Varkey's was quieter, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He had fought in battles across the galaxy and knew when something felt off. Lately, things felt very off. The reports coming in weren't making sense, and Varkey's was starting to notice a pattern. The humans weren't just sitting quietly. They were doing something, and it was making the Zorathians nervous. At first, the Zorathians thought the missing ship, Iron Claw, was just bad luck. Then the supply station on Krenvok stopped working and they blamed broken machines. But more things kept happening. A fuel depot ran dry for no reason. A communication tower went silent. A warehouse full of weapons was locked and no one could find the new codes. Varkey's read every report, his scaly fingers tapping the table. These weren't accidents. Someone was behind them, and he had a bad feeling about who it was. Varkey's called a meeting with his top officers. The room was dim, lit only by the red glow of their screens. The officers sat stiffly, their tails twitching nervously. Varkey's held up a tablet and read aloud. 3 ships lost in 2 weeks, 4 outposts with no power, trade routes blocked by broken satellites. What do these have in common? The officers looked at each other, unsure what to say. One young officer, a nervous type named Kliss, spoke up. Maybe it's pirates, sir. Varkey's shook his head. Pirates leave a mess. These attacks are clean, too clean. Varkey's showed them a map on the big screen. It showed every place where something had gone wrong, ships vanishing, stations shutting down, supplies disappearing. The dots formed a circle around Zorathian territory like a net closing in. This isn't random, Varkey said, his voice low. Someone is planning this. Someone who knows our systems. The officers shifted in their seats. They didn't want to say it, but they were starting to think the same thing, humans. The Zorathians had always thought humans were weak. They lived on a small blue planet far from the center of the galaxy. Their ships weren't as fast, their weapons weren't as strong, but Varkey's wasn't so sure anymore. He remembered stories from other aliens, whispers about humans who never gave up, even when they should. He pulled up a video from a trader planet, one that showed the faces of the 10 humans they'd taken. The video had spread across the galaxy, and now everyone was talking about it. Varkey's watched the faces, Leela, Omar, Miguel, and the others. They didn't look like warriors, but their families were out there, and they weren't staying quiet. Another report came in while Varkey's was thinking. A Zorathian patrol ship near a nebula had stopped moving. Its engines were dead, and its crew couldn't call for help. Varkey sent a team to check, but when they got there, the ship was empty. The crew was gone, left on a nearby asteroid with food and water, just like the crew of Iron Claw. No damage, no fight, just a missing ship. Varkey's felt a chill. Whoever was doing this wasn't trying to kill. They were sending a message, and it was getting louder. The Zorathians started checking their systems more closely. They found something strange. Their computers had tiny changes, codes rewritten, signals blocked, schedules mixed up. One officer found a camera feed that had been turned off for exactly 10 minutes, right when a supply truck vanished. Another found a fuel log that showed deliveries never arrived, even though the records said they did. Varkey's leaned back in his chair, his red eyes narrowing. "This is a plan," he said. "Someone is hitting us where we're weak, and they're doing it without being seen." The other Zorathians weren't ready to believe it. Commander Zyker, their top leader, still thought it was nothing. He stormed into Varkey's meeting, his heavy boots clanging on the floor. "You're worrying too much," Zyker said, his voice sharp. "Humans can't do this. They don't have the ships or the brains." Varkey's didn't argue, but he didn't agree either. He showed Zyker the map with the dots. "Look at this," he said. "Every hit is near one of our key bases. Someone knows exactly where to strike." Zyker snorted, but his tail twitched, and Varkey's knew he was starting to wonder. On a Zorathian mining planet, workers were getting scared. Their machines kept breaking and no one knew why. One day, a drill stopped working, and when they checked, the power lines had been cut cleanly, like with a laser. Another day, a water tank sprang a leak, and all the water drained into the sand. The workers whispered to each other, saying maybe the humans were ghosts, sneaking in and out without a sound. They didn't know about Elena, the hacker, who was slipping into their systems from light years away, turning off machines with a few clicks. Varkey sent more ships to patrol the edges of their territory. He told his officers to double-check every signal, every code. But the problems kept coming. A Zorathian trade ship carrying rare metals never reached its destination. A radio tower on a snowy moon stopped sending messages. A factory making Zorathian armor shut down when its computers froze. Each time, there was no sign of who did it. The Zorathians were starting to feel like they were being watched, like someone was always one step ahead. Back in his tower, Varkey's called a smaller meeting just with his most trusted advisors. He didn't want Zyker there. "We need to think like humans," he said. "They're not fighting like we do. They're not using big armies or loud attacks. They're quiet, careful, and smart." One advisor, a scientist named Lura, nodded. She had studied humans before and knew they were tricky. "Humans don't give up," she said. "If we took their people, they'll keep coming until they get them back." Varkey's agreed. He told his team to start looking for human ships, even small ones, hiding in places like asteroid belts or nebulae. The Zorathians tried to fight back. They sent a fleet to search the asteroid belt where Iron Claw disappeared. But when they got there, they found nothing but rocks and dust. The humans were gone, leaving no clues. Another team checked the supply station on Krenvox, but the computers were still locked, and no one could break Elena's codes. Varkey's soldiers were getting frustrated. They were used to fighting enemies they could see, not shadows that vanished before they could strike. The galaxy was starting to talk more about the humans. On a busy trade planet, merchants shared stories about the Zorathian troubles. "Did you hear their ships are getting lost?" one said. "I bet it's the humans," another whispered. Even kids on a school station heard the news, passing around pictures of the 10 missing people. The stories made the Zorathians look weak, and that made Varkey's angry. He didn't like being laughed at, but he couldn't stop the rumors. Varkey's decided to visit one of the broken outposts himself. He flew to a small station on a rocky planet where the power had been off for days. When he walked inside, he saw workers sitting around, their faces tired and scared. The air was cold and the lights were dim. Varkey's asked what happened, and a worker showed him a machine that wouldn't start. "It just stopped," the worker said. "We checked everything, but it's like someone turned it off from far away." Varkey's looked at the machine and saw a tiny mark, like a tool had been used to open it. He didn't say anything, but he knew humans had been here. Back on his ship, Varkey's got another report. A Zorathian satellite had been hacked, sending fake signals that led their ships off course. He slammed his fist on the table. "This isn't just one person," he said. "It's a team. They're working together." His advisors nodded, but they didn't have answers. They didn't know about Maria's signal jammers, Alina's hacking, or Tara's sneaky missions. They didn't know about the pilots, engineers, and families on Earth, all planning together to make the Zorathians pay. Varkey started to feel something he hadn't felt in years: fear. He wasn't afraid of a big battle or a loud enemy. He was afraid of this quiet, invisible fight. The humans weren't acting scared like the Zorathians expected. They were getting ready, and Varkey could feel it. He looked at the map again, the dots growing closer to the Zorathian homeworld. He knew they needed to act fast, but he didn't know how. The humans were too clever, too hidden. Commander Zyker still didn't believe it was a big problem. He told Varkey to stop worrying and focus on guarding the prison on Varnex, where the 10 humans were locked away. "They're just humans," Zyker said. "They'll give up soon." But Varkey wasn't so sure. He sent a message to all Zorathian bases, telling them to watch for anything strange, small ships, odd signals, anything that didn't belong. He hoped it would help, but deep down, he knew the humans were already ahead. The Zorathians were starting to lose sleep. Their soldiers whispered about ghosts in the stars. Their workers checked their machines twice, afraid they'd stop working. Their leaders argued about what to do. Varkey kept reading the reports, looking for clues, but the pattern was clear. The humans were fighting back, and they weren't going to stop. They weren't loud or flashy. They were smart, patient, and determined. And that scared Varkey more than any army ever could. Back on Earth, in a plain building with no signs or flags, a group of people gathered in a quiet room. There were no cameras, no reporters, no crowds. The windows were covered and the door was locked. These weren't just any people. They were scientists, pilots, hackers, and leaders, all connected to the 10 humans taken by the Zorathians. They weren't here to make speeches or feel sorry for themselves. They had lost family and friends, and they were ready to fight. This meeting was the start of a secret plan to bring their loved ones home and show the Zorathians they'd made a big mistake. The room was small, with a round table in the center and a few flickering lights overhead. Papers, maps, and glowing tablets covered the table. Maria, the scientist whose wife Leela was taken, stood at one end. Her face was tired, but her eyes were sharp. Next to her was Elena, the hacker who was searching for her brother Miguel. Captain Idris, Omar's brother, sat quietly, his hands folded, ready to lead his fleet. Tara, the explorer who loved Priya, leaned over a map, pointing at stars. Rosa, the government leader whose cousin Leo was gone, took notes. Marcus, the pilot looking for his brother Jamal, checked his tablet for ship updates. Dr. Hannah, Sarah's mom, held a small device she'd built to study Zorathian tech. General David, Ethan's dad, stood by the door, his face serious. Zoe, Amara's sister, and Sam, Nia's cousin, sat close, whispering ideas. These people weren't just angry, they were ready to win. Maria spoke first, her voice steady. "We've hit them already," she said. "Their ships are missing. Their stations are broken, but it's not enough. We need a real plan to get our people back." Everyone nodded. They knew the small attacks, disappearing ships, locked stations were just the start. The Zorathians were worried now, but they still held the 10 prisoners on their dark moon, Varnex. This meeting was about making a plan so smart, so careful, that the Zorathians wouldn't see it coming. Elena raised her hand. "I've been inside their systems," she said. I can lock more of their machines or mess with their signals, but we need to know more about Varnex." She pulled up a picture on her tablet showing the black, rocky moon where the prison was hidden. "It's hard to reach, but not impossible. We just need to be sneaky." Alina wasn't loud, but everyone listened. Her hacking had already shut down a Zorathian station, and they trusted her to find a way in. Captain Idris leaned forward. "My fleet can fly close to Varnex," he said, "but we can't just attack. They'd see us coming. We need to trick them." Idris was used to leading big ships into battle, but this time he wanted to be quiet. He suggested using small ships, ones that could hide in the shadows of asteroids or clouds. His pilots were ready, waiting for orders, and they knew how to move without being seen. Tara the explorer pointed at the map. "I've been to moons like Varnex," she said. "There are caves and tunnels we could use. If we land a small team, we could get close to the prison without them knowing." Tara's team had mapped tough places before, and she wasn't afraid of a dark moon. She drew a path on the map, showing how her explorers could sneak through the rocky valleys to reach the prison. Rosa, the government leader, spoke next. "We can't do this alone," she said. "We need help from other planets. I've been talking to traders and miners who don't like the Zorathians. They're willing to share supplies or information." Rosa was good at bringing people together. She'd already sent messages to friendly aliens, asking for maps, tools, or even ships. She wasn't asking for an army, just small things that could make a big difference. Marcus, the pilot, added his idea. "We can keep hitting their supply lines," he said. "If their soldiers are hungry or their ships run out of fuel, they'll be too busy to notice us sneaking to Varnex." Marcus had already helped lose a Zorathian ship in the asteroid belt, and he knew how to keep the aliens distracted. His fighter ship was fast, and he was ready to fly more missions. Dr. Hana held up her device, a small box with blinking lights. "This can jam Zorathian cameras," she said. "If we get it near their prison, they won't see us coming." Hana had studied alien tech for years, and she knew how to turn their own tools against them. Her daughter Sarah was one of the prisoners, and every time Hana thought of her, she worked harder. She'd already given her device to a team that shut down a Zorathian outpost, and now she was ready to use it for something bigger. General David, Ethan's dad, spoke in a deep voice. "We need to be ready for a fight," he said. "Not a big one, but we can't trust the Zorathians to give up easily. My soldiers can train for a rescue mission." David's army was tough, but he didn't want a war. He wanted to get his son and the others out safely. He suggested sending a small group of soldiers to work with Tara's explorers, ready to move fast if things went wrong. Zoe, the starship captain, nodded. "I can lead a team to Varnex," she said. "My ship is fast and my crew knows how to stay hidden." Zoe's sister, Amara, was locked in the prison, and she wasn't going to sit back. She'd flown through dangerous storms before, and a dark moon didn't scare her. She started sketching a plan to get her ship close without being spotted. Sam, the engineer, held up a tiny robot he'd built. It was no bigger than a soccer ball, with little legs and a camera. "This can scout Varnex," he said. "It can crawl into small spaces and send us pictures of the prison." Sam's cousin Nia was one of the 10, and he'd been working nonstop to help. His robot could move quietly, avoiding Zorathian guards, and it could show the team exactly where their loved ones were. The group talked for hours, sharing ideas, making plans. They didn't argue or waste time. Everyone had a job and they trusted each other. Maria would keep building tools to trick Zorathian ships. Elena would hack deeper into their systems, looking for maps of Varnex. Idris and Zoe would ready their ships for a secret trip. Tara would lead her explorers to find a safe path on the moon. Rosa would get supplies from other planets. Marcus would keep hitting Zorathian supply lines. Hannah would test her camera jamming device. David would train his soldiers, and Sam would send his robots to spy. They didn't want a big war. They didn't want to destroy the Zorathians or take their planets. They just wanted their people back: Layla, Omar, Miguel, Priya, Jamal, Sarah, Leo, Amara, Ethan, and Nia. But they knew the Zorathians wouldn't give up easily. The aliens thought they were strong with their big ships and tall towers. They thought humans were weak, too small to fight back. But in this quiet room, the humans were proving them wrong. The plan was simple but clever. First, they'd keep the Zorathians busy with more small attacks. Marcus would lead pilots to mess with more ships, making them get lost or run out of fuel. Elena would lock more stations, turning off their power or water. This would make the Zorathians panic, too busy to notice what was coming next. Then, Tara and Zoe would take a small team to Varnex, using Sam's robots to find the prison. Hannah's device would turn off the cameras, and Elena's hacking would open the doors. Idris's ships would wait nearby, ready to grab everyone and fly away fast. David's soldiers would be there in case things got messy. Rosa made sure they had everything they needed. She found traders who could lend small ships, ones that wouldn't show up on Zorathian scanners. She got food and fuel from a friendly mining planet, delivered in secret. She even convinced a group of alien engineers to share maps of Varnex, showing hidden tunnels the Zorathians didn't know about. Rosa's work was quiet, but it was like glue, holding the whole plan together. As the meeting went on, the group started to feel stronger. They weren't just a bunch of sad people missing their families. They were a team, each person bringing something special. Maria's brains, Elena's codes, Idris's ships, Tara's maps, Rosa's connections, Marcus's speed, Hannah's tech, David's soldiers, Zoe's courage, and Sam's robots. They all fit together like pieces of a puzzle. They weren't loud or showy. They didn't need flags or crowds. They just needed to work together, and they were doing it. Outside the room, the rest of Earth was starting to help, too. Aisha, Omar's daughter, shared her drawings of the 10 prisoners with her school. The kids showed their parents, who told their friends. Soon, people were sending messages of support, offering tools or ideas. A group of mechanics fixed old ships to help Idris's fleet. A teacher organized kids to pack food for the rescue team. Even regular people who didn't know the prisoners wanted to help. They saw the pictures of Lila, Omar, and the others, and they felt angry. They wanted to show the Zorathians that humans stick together. The meeting ended late at night, but no one was tired. They felt ready, like a spark had turned into a fire. Maria looked around the room and said, "We're not just fighting for our families. We're fighting for everyone who thinks they can hurt us and get away with it." Everyone nodded. They knew this wasn't just about 10 people. It was about showing the galaxy that humans weren't weak. They were smart, strong, and ready to do whatever it took. Before they left, they made a promise. They wouldn't tell anyone outside the group about the plan. No reporters, no messages, no leaks. The Zorathians couldn't know what was coming. The team shook hands, hugged, and went back to their work. Maria returned to her lab, Elena to her computers, Idris to his ships. They didn't need to say much. They all knew what was at stake. The Zorathians thought they'd won when they took the 10 humans. They thought Earth would cry and give up. But in that quiet room with no flags or press, the humans were building a plan. They weren't here to talk or feel sad. They were here to win, and they were going to do it together.